The botanists reckoning the gavel slammed down like a death sentence. Dr. Hayes, your tenure application is denied. Your research lacks practical value. The committee's verdict echoed through the packed auditorium, but it was my department head's sneer that cut deepest. Urban botany won't pay the bills, Elena. Come back when you're ready to do real science. I stood frozen, 27 years of work, my passion for merging city planning with plant ecology reduced to a punchline. My hands trembled as I gathered my notes, but my voice didn't waver. You'll see, I whispered, more to myself than them. This will matter. My family's reception was worse. At Thanksgiving dinner, my aunt snorted, a botanist. What's next? Planting flowers on Mars. My father's face reddened. You're an embarrassment. When are you going to stop chasing fairy tales and start acting like a grown-up? I left that night with my suitcase and their laughter ringing in my ears. I spent the next 3 years living off savings, sleeping in a cramped apartment above a hardware store, convinced I could prove them wrong. I started small, transforming a vacant lot behind a laundromat into a microforest. Neighbors scoffed, but kids began playing there. Bees returned. Slowly, the soil darkened, and so did my resolve. Every rejection letter, every no from city officials, just fueled me. I learned to read soil chemistry in my sleep, designed vertical gardens for food deserts, turned storm drains into bioswales that filtered pollution. My hands blistered, my back ached, but each project became a rebellion against their doubt. Then came the turning point. A grant from the EPA to revitalize 20 acres of abandoned industrial land. 2 years later, the brownfield oasis became a living lab, a mosaic of wetlands, pollinator corridors, and edible forests that cooled the neighborhood by 15 degrees in summer. My phone buzzed constantly, interviews, offers, awards. But I kept my eyes on the prize, making the mockers eat their words. My mother's stroke brought me home. She'd recovered enough to sit in her garden, the same one where, years ago, she'd rolled her eyes when I tried to explain my weird plants. Now, her yard was dying. The soil cracked, the roses withered. Elena, she rasped, I need your help. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent a decade healing the world's broken spaces, yet here she was, asking me to save her own neglected corner. I nodded, and within weeks, our childhood home became a test site for my latest innovation. A closed-loop garden that recycled graywater, grew food, and revived the soil. My parents watched, wide-eyed, as I laid permeable pavers, planted nitrogen-fixing shrubs, and installed a rain garden that turned runoff into resources. This is beautiful, my father muttered, kneeling beside a bed of purple coneflower I designed to attract monarchs. It's practical science, I said softly, the kind that heals cities and people. 6 months later, the garden was featured in National Geographic. My parents stood beside me at the unveiling, my mother beaming as reporters praised her daughter's revolutionary approach. But the real moment came when my aunt, who'd once rolled her eyes, approached me, tears in her eyes. Elena, I'm sorry, we were wrong. This isn't just plants, it's magic. Magic. Not the word I'd use, but close enough. Later, as we sat on the porch swing, my father admitted, I thought you were throwing your life away. But you built something that matters, not just for you, but for everyone. I smiled. I always knew I could. I just had to grow into myself. The victory wasn't just mine. It belonged to every child who now played in green spaces I'd seeded, every community that breathed easier because of my work. My family's regret couldn't undo their words, but their recognition was a balm. As the sun set over my mother's thriving garden, I realized that the deepest karma wasn't revenge. It was becoming someone they could no longer deny. In the end, the most beautiful revenge is thriving so gloriously that the doubters have no choice but to call it a miracle. And miracles, I've learned, bloom where they're planted.